Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom or Tom. How's it going?
Tony just was thrown on a sweatshirt to come down here and record the podcast. Had one that I hadn't worn in a while. Thought, this is a great time to do that. The weather finally has turned, no longer summer. See you in hell, summer 2025. The cold front went through. It rained for like a full day. And now the forecast for the foreseeable future just says glorious. So I'm going to assume that's a good news. And you were saying just before we hit record that in the honor of the Chicago Cubs, you are Clark the Cupping it for today's podcast. So that's great news for both of us, I guess.
Great news, and more great news. Love the University of Toronto. Shout out there. Even though it's Under Armour, but I guess beggars cannot be choosers.
I don't get to sign their deals, Tony. I just get to go over there while I'm on vacation.
So there you go. So we are here today to talk about what we learned from watching Illinois' 34-32 win over USC back late September, 2 weeks ago, basically. And we both watched it, and I think maybe we watched some of it live here and there, but finally got to go back and fully digest that and wanted to share some of our thoughts ahead of the Illinois game on Saturday. And Tom, I got to be honest, try not to go behind or ahead when Ryan Day says, "Don't look at the Indiana game." Like, I'm sorry. I got to at least look at the box score. And when I see that Indiana rushes for over 300 yards on Illinois, like, you can't ignore that. Now, USC did not do that, but they still had some success all over this Illinois defense.
They did, and I did go back and watch, when someone's like, "Well, don't look at that." No, it's like, oh, well, now I was on the internet in the 1990s. That makes me just go, well, all right, what does this look like? And so I did go back and rewatch. And the only notes I have on that game, so we'll hit the Illinois-Indiana game very quickly before we move on. My notes on the Indiana game were just basically on, here's all the crap that happened to Illinois, because it was like the perfect storm of all the things happening, none of them good. Running back Aiden Lowry, who was hurt for that game, missed the game. They kept. I think that was a little bit of a surprise. The announcers kept saying, "Oh, we still haven't seen him yet," and he didn't play. Beatty, Hank Beatty, their best receiver by a million miles, he got hurt on the opening drive, had only 2 catches for 13 yards. They got a punt block for a touchdown. They had Miles Scott, who is one of their safeties. They were missing Xavier Scott, who's out for the year, who's one of their corners. Miles Scott, who's one of their team captains and a safety. He was tossed early in the second quarter for targeting. They had, there were some of them, they just kind of got rock, paper, scissored, where, they're running a blitz and Indiana has a tight end delay screen that's just the perfect call. And then, one of the touchdowns right after halftime, Mac Resich, who was the safety who replaced Miles Scott, took a bad angle that turned what should have been like a 10-yard run into a long touchdown run. And then he got hurt after that. By the end of the game, here was the list of players who did not finish the Illinois game. This is the Illinois-Indiana game. This is just from the Illinois secondary. Xavier Scott, who's out for the year, he was completely, didn't play at all. Cornerback Caleb Patterson, quarterback Jaheim Clark, cornerback Torrey Cox, safe Mac Resich, safety Matthew Bailey, safety Miles Scott. So you take 7 players out of anyone's secondary, Tony, and they're not going to look great. Now, all that to say, they didn't look great against USC either, but they also didn't give up 63 points to USC. So, I think the Indiana game was a little bit of a perfect storm, but there's at least a poopy defense watch, if not a poopy defense warning for Illinois this weekend.
Now, the injuries are legit, because I still contend that Ohio State's 1994 63-14 loss to Penn State may have been a toss-up had Eddie George not gotten hurt early in that game. He may have been the 49-point difference one way or the other in that, so give Illinois some credit. But yeah, watching this one where you get to see USC and Jaden Mayava, the quarterback, throw it around, Makai Lemon, their top receiver, making plays, And I just see a lot of opportunity for Ohio State's offense to have some very good success against Illinois, both running and throwing. And, USC rushed for, in this one, 126 yards, but 94 yards for Wayman Jordan, their top running back, 4.7 yards per carry, along of just 13 yards. So there's some consistency going on there. And one of my top thoughts is if Ohio State doesn't run the ball reasonably well, then I am officially concerned about the Ohio State running game. And what reasonably, 150 yards is all I'm looking for, really.
Yeah, if they run for 5 yards a carry, give or take, 30-ish carries for 5 yards a carry, 25 for 5.5 or whatever it is, that's probably a reasonable number. They should be able to run the ball reasonably well. I think they're going to have plenty of success in the passing game as well. Some of this is going to come down to what does Illinois decide they want to stop. If they're going to throw the kitchen sink at stopping the run game like Minnesota did, then you'll see that manifest itself in a bunch of passing. But they should be able to run the ball reasonably well against Illinois' defense and Illinois' defensive front. There are pieces here for Illinois on the defense that are not bad.
Yeah.
Gabe Acas, which his last name is spelled Jacas, but the J is silent, which I'm glad I watched a broadcast because they definitely would not have been saying that right. But Gabe Acas, number 17, really, really impactful. He is kind of like a Big Ten all-conference kind of caliber player. You felt him in the run defense. He had he at one point forced an intentional grounding penalty, so that's number 17 on the defensive line. That's certainly someone to watch. James Thompson, defensive tackle, you saw him a couple times. Like there are some pieces, but at the same time, this is a game where Ohio State should probably win on the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. Not to the degree they did against Grambling or anything, but they should win the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, Acas last year, 13 tackles for loss, 8 sacks, one of the top edge guys. And he's a pretty big guy, too. He's like 270 pounds or so. So he plays this, 3-4 outside linebacker edge guy that, I don't know. There are no labels anymore, just edge.
Like a jack, you mean?
No,
He's a jack.
No, we don't say the J word around here.
Sorry, he's the ack. Sorry.
Fair enough. But overall, like if you contain him, as I'm taking all these notes, and not a lot of defensive names are popping up for me. Rosiak, the linebacker, he had a big hit. And he had a big interception on RPO, kind of maybe baited Jaden Mayava a little bit into making a throw, and then he made the play on the interception on that RPO. Overall, like the fact that just when we do these, you're looking for names and guys that continue to flash and pop up, and really I didn't have much from the Illinois defense doing that one way or the other, and maybe it's because they rotate a lot, so you can't blame everything on one particular guy. But there was nothing there defensively that makes me think like this is going to be like a 20-17 kind of game.
No, I think Ohio State's going to score more than that for sure. Yeah, and Dylan Rosiak, the number 28, the linebacker, he was the only other guy whose name I had written down in the front seven. And you saw him around the ball a lot in the Indiana game. He was second on the team in tackles in that game, but there were a lot of opportunities for tackles in the Indiana game. So there's not a guy on this team that you look and you're like, man, that's their version of Caleb Downs. Like there's not. They don't have that on defense. The defense is kind of fine. This is just someone on our board kind of compared them to Washington in a lot of ways where they've got some playmakers on offense. The defense is kind of just okay, and I thought that was a pretty apt comparison. Where we watched the Washington defense for a couple games, and it was kind of like, yeah, I've got a couple names written down and they're okay, but there's not like a real difference maker, I don't think, on the defense.
No, I mean they're bottom 5, bottom 6 in most defensive categories in the Big Ten. Rush defense, yards per play, total defense, scoring defense. They gave up 27, I think, to Purdue. Ohio State should be able to score enough to win this. The thing that will decide that ultimately, I think, is Luke Altmyer and the Illinois offense. And one of the things that I really like about Luke Altmyer is, for one, they respond very well. And they can take a punch and then punch right back. I think that's a Brett Bielema staple. You know, he's very punchable. We know that. But also he will punch right back. So, Luke Altmyer, when he got to Illinois, everybody remembers his 4-interception game at home against Penn State back in 2023. It was like the second or third game of the season. Like 1 game or 2 games after that, he threw another interception at home. Since then, he has not thrown an interception at home. He's like thrown like 24 touchdowns and 1 interception since that at home, since that 4-interception game. Like he is not that player that we all saw. Just like Graham Mertz is not that player that we all saw have 5 touchdowns. Like, oh, you know, this is the guy. Luke Altmyer has he does a lot of good things. He gets a little wild at times, but in this one he was 20 of 26 for 328, 2 touchdowns, a long of 64 yards, which, let's be honest, was just a little swing pass to a 255-pound running back that ran down the sidelines, and USC couldn't catch him. So good job there, I guess. But Altmyer is a quality quarterback, a veteran guy. I don't think he's going to be I don't think this game will be too much for him. The defense might be too much for him just because of how good it is, but I don't see him as being a guy that is going to be rattled. He might be. The product may not look great because of the defense, but I see him as a guy that's going to keep fighting.
Well, in this game, he went down the field right after USC had taken a 1-point lead with less than 2 minutes to play. Went right down the field, boom, 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 and looked completely in control. Like sometimes those, even when those 2-minute drill kind of drives work, they'll look a little harried or a little frazzled. He looked completely in control, went right down the field. They kicked the game-winning field goal in this one. Even in the Indiana game, they were down 28-7 or something like that, maybe 35-7. And they got the ball right before the half. And the roof has very clearly, it's not falling in. It has collapsed all around them. And he gets the ball with, maybe a minute and a half left in the first half. At a point when you're wondering, is Bielema just going to sort of take a knee and just get out of there and just say well, not our night. And he went right down the field and led him to a field goal there as well. So, even when stuff is really not going well, he's solid. He's a solid player. He's not DeMond Williams where he's going to go 60 yards. He's probably a better scrambler than Drew Aller, but he's not going to outrun people. He's not one of those guys who's he's faster than he is on film. No, he's exactly as speedy as, but he can move around in the pocket. He can be a little bit elusive in the pocket. He can pick up some first downs with his legs. Just to give you an idea of his athleticism, he did something for Illinois that no one since Kurt Kittner, the hallowed days of Kurt Kittner in 1999 did. He ran for a touchdown, caught a touchdown on a Philly special in this game, and also threw for a touchdown. No one had done that since Kurt Kittner in 1999. But, as you said, he actually had 2 60-yard completions. One was like that swing pass or screen pass, whatever it was, to the running back. Another one was like a short curl where a corner just missed a tackle and the guy took off and had a long touchdown. So, it was 2, 60-yard completions, not the way that Julian Sayin had 40-yard completions last week. But, they do have some playmakers on offense, which I think brings me to Hank Beatty, who is their slot receiver, number 80. He's probably the single most impactful guy on the Illinois offense. He threw the touchdown pass on that Philly special. He was a wildcat quarterback at one point running a sweep. He caught a screen pass and turned it into a nice gain, caught a long pass downfield. He's right among, you mentioned Makai Lemon for USC. He's leading the Big Ten in receiving yards right now. I believe Hank Beatty is second in the Big Ten in receiving yards. So he's someone that's going to be someone that Ohio State's going to have to maybe focus some attention on. I think that him against Lorenzo Styles is going to be, I think, a really interesting matchup to watch in this game.
And Lorenzo Styles has been very, very good this year. He did give up he's given up half of Ohio State's touchdowns this year. So that is a check mark against him. When you're giving up half of your team total touchdowns over 5 games, Like, boy, how many touchdowns have you given up? Actually, it's just one, but still. Hank Beatty, he's the first player, I don't know if you saw this graphic, the first player since Steve Breaston in 2003 to have a touchdown catch, a touchdown rush, a pass, and a punt return in the same season. Got to go all the way back to Stevie Breaston in 2003. And he's very good, and that's going to be a really fun matchup to watch. And then Colin Dixon was the other outside. He's their top outside guy. He had 4 for 90, including that 61-yarder. He's kind of a bigger guy, like 6'2", 6'3", 215, kind of rough and tumble, and can maybe break a tackle if you're not serious about it. This was Luke Altmyer's 7th fourth quarter game-winning drive game of his career, so that also tells you quite a bit about him. I view him as a guy that can run. He rushed for, I think he had like 4 carries for 36 yards, lost 9 on a sack. He's coming into this game with negative yards rushing, though, to give you an idea of the pass protection not being there this year, and perhaps that's not great news for the game against Ohio State and how they will attack him. But I do expect them to, there'll be some spying, I think, of him, and then you can turn that spy loose to go get him. And I don't see him being able to get away from Arvell Reese or Sonny Styles in that spy mode. They are going to run the ball as they're going to certainly try to run the ball against Ohio State, slow the game down, or I guess speed it up, speed the clock up. They went for 171 yards on 35 attempts, and they controlled the game. Long rush of 13 yards, but they averaged 4.9 yards per carry. So that's like basically just getting 5 yards every time they ran the ball, and it's Juice Williams left, Juice Williams right. Not to bring up some bad memories to people, but that's basically kind of what that offense can do when they're happy just getting 6 yards, and then let's go to 2nd and 4 and see what we get there, and they're gonna try to establish that run. Ohio State's been very good this year so far. The running backs don't really stand out as anything special to me, other than the Fagan kid is like Caden Fagan's like 6'3", 255, and Khalil Valentine, kind of a faster guy, quite a bit slighter. And then you mentioned the Lawfrey kid. Illinois also fumbled the ball twice, or turned the ball over twice inside like their own 10-yard line. So this could have been a much uglier game, but I do expect them to try and run the ball on Saturday.
Yeah, the running backs were kind of fine. They were eventful. This is like when I talked about Minnesota's special teams last week and said they were eventful. Caden Fagan's game was he took a handoff and looked like he was trying to throw a running back pass, and the receiver wasn't open, so he didn't throw it. He had a fumble right at the goal line where, like going into the end zone, he fumbled at about the 1 yard line. Then he was the one who had the 64-yard touchdown reception. Against Purdue, he had just 16 yards rushing, but 2 touchdowns. So that kind of gives you an idea that he's sort of their goal line guy, but does other stuff as well. Lawfrey has missed several weeks in a row, so we'll see. He was supposedly a game time decision last week and didn't play, so you would expect that he would be ready to go this week. We'll see. And then the other one was Khalil Valentine, who also had a fumble at the goal line. He's someone who runs really hard, but got the ball punched out on about the 3 yard line and fumbled into the end zone. And Gus Johnson just about reached DEFCON 0, trying to call that play and get any coherent English words out as that ball was loose in the end zone. USC fell on it. But that kind of gives you an indication. Like, Illinois was good enough that they won the game, even though they had 2 touchdowns that were, like they're going into the end zone and 1 yard or less away from going in for the end zone and fumbled the ball and lost it. USC also had a touchdown wiped off the board on a trick play where they had their backup center in, and it was the first ineligible man downfield call I've seen all year. And it was a guy who was like 1 yard too far downfield and not blocking anyone, and had just sort of like wandered off like a little lost child at the mall, and that wiped out a USC touchdown. It was a weird game. Like, you watch USC and Illinois playing, and it's a conference game, and it's like nothing about this is right. Like, what are the USC fans from Southern California? They get on a plane at LAX and they fly out and they're in Champaign, Illinois. And it's like, so guys, what do you think? And it's like, man, this is where we belong. A conference game all the way. It was the whole game just kind of fit that vibe. It was just kind of like, yeah, this is a weird football game.
Yeah, I do feel bad for those 3 USC fans. Yes, you're correct. I think one of the last things for me is they kicked a 41-yard field goal to win it. Their kicker had David Olano had a 45-yarder in the third and a 41-yarder at the end. So he's proven at this point. He also handles their kickoffs. They only punted once in this game. They only forced 1 punt in this game. I would assume we'll see more punts for Illinois this week. Nothing special there, but anything else that you wanted to touch on before we get out of here?
The Illinois offensive line, it's a veteran offensive line. They have the second most starts of any team in the NCAA in terms of offensive line. But it's just kind of like, so they're good. It's like, well, they've been there a long time. They're fine. Like Klatt on the game said, well, if they can just go straight ahead, they'll be, that's what they're looking to do. They're going to look at it straight ahead because they're not athletic. They're not going to go sideline to sideline. They would just like to just straight up downhill run, one gap, just boom, block, go, and move on with life. So it feels like that might be an offensive line that Ohio State can maybe beat with quickness. Josh Kreutz, who is the center, number 64, he had an injury. He missed some time in the Indiana game. He was like wildly unimpressive. So, that might be a watch this space. It might be a Caden McDonald game if Illinois center is not great. And then the only other thing that I had is Illinois. You mentioned Brett Bielema, and Brett Bielema. I have come to love Brett Bielema and really enjoy talking to Brett Bielema at Big Ten Media Days every year. But also, you can absolutely see why he gets underneath people's skin, because Illinois is doing these like real late subs and really taking their time getting off the field when they're on defense. And USC, like, there's the official still standing over the ball, and there's like 5 seconds on the play clock, and Lincoln Riley is absolutely losing his mind. And so, the way to avoid that is you just don't sub, keep your personnel in and just go. And, I think Ohio State running tempo would probably get Illinois like way out of what Illinois wants to do in this kind of game. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that. But yeah, just prepare yourself. If Ohio State subs, just prepare yourself for Illinois defensive linemen very slowly leaving the field.
Well, and we've seen talk that refs are going to be like, they won't stand for it for too long. But
this game was 2 weeks ago, so they were standing for it then. So
yeah, and you're seeing like Jaden Mayava like clap as quickly as possible once that ref would move, like, hey, we got to go. In terms of the Illinois offensive line, I agree they've got a great personality. The last thing, they will change up their fronts defensively. They started out by rushing 4, and they're in a 4-2-5. Then they'll go to an odd front and have a 3-3-5. Then you'll see like 5 guys and kind of the penny look that we've talked about. So multiple fronts, nothing that Julian Sayin hasn't seen to this point. He sees it every single day in practice. So there you go. That will do it. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit the thumbs up. We would appreciate that. And of course, continue to 5-star rating and review us there at whatever your podcast platform of choice. And as always, you can find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com, where we are talking about this game. We are talking about the season. There's a little bit of Penn State talk. It's always fun to talk about James Franklin, as we know, and other things as well. So find us there at the Buckeye Huddle message board presented by Jeff Ruby's Columbus. So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll talk to you all later.